Hello everyone and welcome back to the second part of Hello Kitty and Friends, The Big Bake Off. We are on chapter 2. So if you've missed the last part, just go and watch the first ones and also the book 10, I think it was. So I'm going to try and zoom in as much as I can. This is chapter 2, Happy Baking. Hello Kitty hummed happily to herself. It was the very next day, and already she was hard at work baking. Grandma White had come over to help while Mama and Minnie had gone out to do the grocery shopping. Hello Kitty had already made a batch of heart-shaped cookies for when the Friendship Club came over later, but now she wanted to bake something else. Maybe she should practice her cake for the competition. Hello Kitty turned to her grandma. What sort of cake did Grandma White think that Hello Kitty should bake for the competition? She needed something really original. Did Grandma have any ideas? Grandma White smiled and shook her head. She had a few ideas, but it was a competition for an original cake. Then it was important for Hello Kitty came up with her own. I like the little pictures in these. Hello Kitty sighed and nodded. She knew that Grandma White was right. But what was she going to do? Perhaps one of Mama's cookery books would help her to come up with something. She started flicking through the pages. Lemon sponge cake, chocolate fudge cake, carrot cake. They were all delicious, of course, but none of them were new. Hello Kitty came to one of her favourites, white chocolate and raspberry cake. It was really yummy, but maybe she should just forget about the competition for now and make that for her friends. After all, they had lots of raspberries they needed to use up, and her friends really did love it. Hello Kitty started measuring out the flour and butter. She then weighed the raspberries that they'd bought at the fruit farm. Finally, she got Grandma White to chop the white chocolate. Now all that was needed was the eggs, sugar, and flour. Once she had put them in, she gave all of the ingredients a good stir and poured them into the tin so Grandma could put it in the oven. A nice little kitchen. It would only need to bake for 20 to 25 minutes, just until it was golden brown, and in the meantime she had the biscuits she had made earlier to ice. The Friendship Club usually brought their membership cards to each of the meetings and put them in the middle of the table. It always made their meetings feel more grown up. This time though, Hello Kitty wanted to set out each of her friends' places with her own cookie, with their name on them in icing. It gives you an example of what the cards would look like. She picked up the ice and pen and started to pipe their names on the cookies in their favourite colours. Purple for Fifi, blue for Tammy, red for dear Daniel, and pink for herself, of course. She had just finished when the buzzer went off on the oven. The cake was ready. Grandma White opened the oven door and they peered inside to see a lovely, round, honey yellow cake with splodges of raspberries in it. Grandma White took it out of the oven and set it on the side to cool, and just in the nick of time as well. At that very moment, the front door bell rang. Sorry, I think my headphone has fallen out. Hello Kitty went to answer it, and all of her friends spilled in excitedly. They really wanted to talk about their ideas for their cakes. Dear Daniel was going to do a giant spider cake. He would ice it all over with chocolate icing and use licorice for the legs and orange and green jelly drops for the feet and eyes. Fifi was going to make cupcakes with ice skating themed. She loved ice skating. She had decided she would ice some cupcakes with white icing so they looked like mini ice rinks, and then decorate each of them with little plastic model skaters. Tammy was going to make a bookworm cake. That was a bit of a joke as Tammy loved books. It was going to be a sponge cake made to look like a book with a yellow worm in a top hat coming out of the cover. And what about Hello Kitty? What was she going to do? Hello Kitty admitted that while she'd been thinking hard, she hadn't come up with anything yet. She had been too busy baking the biscuits and chocolate and raspberry cake. Grandma White appeared at that moment with a fresh cake on a plate covered in white icing and decorated with fresh raspberries. Ta-da! All of the Friendship Club agreed that it looked completely delicious. They were very glad Hello Kitty and Grandma had spent the morning making it. As they tucked into big slices, Fifi mumbled that it was so yummy, Hello Kitty should bake it as a cake. For the competition, Tammy giggled. Fifi shouldn't talk with her mouth so full. Hello Kitty wasn't sure though. How could a plain cake be enough when all of her friends had come up with such imaginative ideas? She would try and think of something else. After all, there was still plenty of time. A good idea would come to her soon, but for now it was time for the special cookies. Everyone squealed and thanked Hello Kitty, blushed and smiled. If only she could make the cookies for the competition. Oh well. I was about to say chapter 2, but it's chapter 3. Chapter 3, Festival Fun. 3 days later, Hello Kitty still hadn't come up with an idea for a cake that she wanted to bake for the competition. The trouble was that she just didn't have time to think. The holidays were so busy. She and Minnie had been at tennis camp every afternoon. They had visited Waterworld one morning and been out with Grandma White another morning. Now here they were on the day of the food festival, and she still didn't know what she was going to do. She would have to bake the raspberry and white chocolate cake after all. Such a cute illustration. Hello Kitty sighed. She felt a little bit disappointed with herself for not coming up with something more original, but she was determined not to let that spoil the festival. The sun was shining, and she was about to spend the day with her friends. The park looked amazing. There was brightly coloured bunting hanging from tree to tree, and small, colourful little umbrellas shading outside the tables. The tables themselves were filled with the most amazing array of food, from jams to cheese to pastries to juices. So many trays packed with the most incredible selection of goodies. There was a bouncy castle as well, and balloons marking each of the entrance points to the park. In the middle of it all stood the biggest tent you'd ever seen. It was open on two sides so that it was light and airy inside. Hello Kitty, Minnie waited with Mama and Papa near the entrance. They had arranged to meet the rest of the Friendship Club and their parents there. Hello Kitty adjusted her backpack. She had grabbed it that morning to carry her cardigan, notebook, pen, and purse, but she had forgotten to take the plant pots out with all the other things. It was a little bit heavy. Just then, dear Daniel appeared and gave Hello Kitty a little wave. His dad was there too, and he had his camera strapped over his shoulder. He was going to be taking lots of snapshots of the day so they would have lots of nice photos to remember it with. And now here were the others. Tammy was skipping along with her twin brother Timmy. Her parents were following on behind, and behind her was Fifi coming with her parents too. All of the parents greeted each other and then they paid their entrance fees and made their way into the park. There was plenty of time to look around before the baking and cooking workshop started. There were so many people there that it was hard to walk around in a big group, so they all agreed to meet at the big tent later, and then they'd split up. Hello Kitty set off with her parents and Minnie. She wanted to do some food tasting and some apple bobbing, but she also wanted to sit down for a little bit with her notebook and see if she could come up with a last-minute cake idea. Mama White wanted to check out the cheese stand and Minnie was going to try chocolate tasting. Papa White said that he would take her there. Would Hello Kitty like to do that too? But Hello Kitty shook her head. She really just wanted to sit down and try to think of cake ideas. Mama and Papa White said that she could do that as long as she sat under the shade of the trees near the cheese stand where Mama could keep an eye on her. And there's Hello Kitty sitting under the tree. Hello Kitty agreed that she wouldn't move from the spot. Then she plonked herself down on the grass and pulled off her backpack. She took out her notebook and started to think hard. For 5 minutes she sat, chewing on her pencil and trying to think, but there were so many things to look at around her that she kept getting distracted and her notebook remained empty. Suddenly she heard a strange noise. She looked all around but couldn't see anything. Was it her imagination or had she just heard a little whimper? There it was again, a definite little whine coming from the trees behind her. It sounded like an animal. What could it be? And there we go. In the next video we